All right. Well, welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast. I'm your host E here with all your cool wrestling, all your cool wrestling factoids. Stick with me, your GSMC Wrestling Laureate, and we'll make you a wrestling professional by the end of the night. Guarantee it. So just kind of reflect on what we talked about here. We talked about our WWE NXT review, and we moved forward. We talked about AEW preview, Dynamite happening right now. Can't wait to watch it. And so without further ado, we're going to move on to our third segment. We're talking about our WWE PLEs heading for Sundays. Well, before we move on, we want to remind you guys to always use the tips and donations link at the GSMCPodcast.net. Show me your questions. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. And, we can make this podcast something that's not totally mine, something that's totally ours. It's going to be amazing. Absolutely, 100%. So, let's go ahead and move on. So, according to the UFC President Dana White, WWE PLEs will eventually come back to Sundays. Which is I'm not totally against it, but what I am against, we'll get into it, right now. So we have Dana White was asked about his plans for the UFC and his Power Slap promotions, and he said, and I quote, "Excuse me, you're going to see Friday Power Slap, Saturday UFC, and Sunday WWE." It's kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. He didn't mention SmackDown. He didn't mention Raw. Didn't really mention NXT. So already that quote kind of rubbed me the wrong way here. So, for decades, WWE events were solely placed on Sunday evenings, which I totally, definitely remind, I remember that. Every Sunday, turn on the WWE network, watch whatever pay-per-view they had on. I remember when I was younger and I couldn't afford pay-per-view. We kind of had this cable box that like we put on a channel. We kind of sort of had cable, not really cable. And it was really fuzzy and you couldn't really make out who was wrestling, but you can kind of hear it. So ultimately that's kind of how I got my wrestling news, was from like bootleg cable. but no, it was pretty cool. I remember like my friends from elementary school, I think it was like fourth grade, they would come up to me and they'd be like, "Hey Eric, who won this and that?" Like, because this was before cell phones. This was before anything. You guys should feel happy. You guys should feel lucky with cell phones and stuff like that. You just like open up your phone, open Safari or Google, whatever you guys like to use, or Bing, and be like, "What happened on SmackDown? What happened on Raw? What happened on the pay-per-view?" Like, I didn't really have that luxury growing up. So, I remember having to do a a report on like I think it was a grizzly bear, and then I had to go to the library and look up like something called encyclopedias. But now you guys have Wikipedia. So, kind of crazy, obviously kind of, it's totally told my age here. I'm sorry you guys had to hear that. Sorry, but like, and maybe to get, young people to appreciate things a little more. So yeah. Like I said, for decades, WWE events was on, PLEs were on Sunday. The ultimate reason why the change came from WWE was because of the WWE president Nick Khan ultimately said this, and I quote, that big sports events were better on Saturday. And that kind of, hinting at kind of heading towards Saturdays. They never really made the move yet. They would make the move, but the moment Nick Khan opened up his mouth and said this, he said, "We," and in terms of we, he meant the WWE, "think that the ticket sales reflective of that." Um, Basically saying that you look at the ticket sales, you look at the TV ratings, and it was true. Moving it to Saturday nights was ultimately basically a win-win in terms of WWE. And I know it kind of, exemplified, like, it shows how much success they've had ever since they moved just one day over to Saturday. So it's going to be interesting to to try to find out how they come to like a kind of like an even keel, even an agreement kind of things in terms of UFC. Obviously, you don't have UFC every single Saturday, just as much as you don't have WWE every Saturday. Maybe perhaps they can they can take turns, but also you got to think of the main events that have two nights. So are we going to miss that as WWE fans? It kind of sucks. Would suck. Also, when they do have pay-per-views on on Saturday and stuff like that. There's also, the NXT pay-per-views that come on. They're usually, in the morning on Saturday morning. So it's going to be interesting to find out what they do with that as well. So WWE moves. So what does that mean? Now what? You're gonna move something that basically is working. WWE is absolutely super popular and they're live in 180 countries. Dana White, I'm sorry, my man, but I feel like WWE is more popular than the UFC. So why move something that works as opposed to something that not doesn't work, but just something that doesn't bring in that much revenue, you know, in terms of ticket sales, merchandise sales, TV ratings, television revenue, like advertisements and stuff like that. So it just kind of baffles me. I'm like, oh, moving it to Sundays. They were on Sundays before, and I think maybe that's kind of like the mindset of Dana White, because Dana White, he's been amazing for the UFC, definitely an amazing leader, a good guy. So I have no hate. I have no hate for Dana White. Absolutely love the fact that UFC and WWE came together, but that's neither here nor there. We're gonna focus on one thing. I don't know. So does that mean that WWE they have to compete against the NFL when the NFL starts? Sunday Night Football. You have Sunday Night Football streaming on Peacock, just like the wrestling events. Kind of a little strange. And that's just something that's really big. That's you have to kind of think about if you're Dana White. You're like, all right, so now we have the less popular UFC, and I'm not saying less popular like they're like hurting or something like that, as opposed to WWE and professional wrestling. So we have the least popular UFC happening on Saturday night. Let's go and put our main money, like our money maker, against the NFL. The NFL, yeah, the NFL on Fox in the afternoon, Greg Olson or whatever. And I heard Tom Brady's actually gonna, announce a couple of games too. So you're putting WWE against the NFL. The NFL is king. The NFL is loved by Americans all over the nation. Why not? Honestly, I'm a huge NFL fan. Love football to the max. There's actually a couple times where I remember this actually happening. Actually happening where WWE was on the WWE network, where I would have to bring in it was a 30 no it was a 32, it was a 40-inch TV that had like a fire stick, put it in another place so we can have Sunday Night Football happening and have the pay-per-view happening at the same time. But a lot of people probably wouldn't end up doing that. Probably would not. So and it's gonna be interesting to kind of find out what happens with that. So I don't know. So you have Sunday Night Football and you also have baseball. I know baseball's not as appealing to other audiences, but there's some people who love baseball. They love going to games. They love watching. There's the superstars that they watch from college baseball kind of grow up to be these phenoms. You have Sunday Night Baseball, but most importantly, and I think y'all are gonna laugh at me about this, but you kind of, you have baseball, you have football. But I think the one main thing that's gonna F this up for WWE in terms of ratings is basically your family Sunday fun day. And I know that sounds, crazy because like, oh, why don't your family just watch WWE? Have you ever sat down on the couch and be like, all right, kids, guess what? We're not gonna watch Blippi, we're not gonna watch Bluey, we're not gonna watch anything in terms of dinosaurs, princesses, hobbling goblins, and whatever. We're gonna watch this thing called WWE. And you have to sit here, watch, and appreciate the sport. Now, see, that doesn't happen. That does not happen. Sunday Fun Day it's family fun, and I can prove it. Wrestling fans, the average wrestling fan is from 31 years old to 56 years old, so that's just basically screaming parents. Parents, young parents, 56 years old, maybe you're having a couple grandchildren, and obviously if it's a different situation, maybe a couple great grandchildren. I'm just kidding. No, and then also and I know I'm not trying to shade religious or anything like that. You also have church in the mornings. Church in the mornings. Sometimes WWE have these events in Saudi Arabia, in Glasgow, Scotland, in France, and according to our time, it's in the morning. It's bright. It's like 10 a.m. in the morning. And you're like, oh shit, I gotta go to church. And then sometimes there's nightly masses as well. There's nightly masses, there's nightly meet and greetings in terms of churches and stuff like that that happen on Sunday nights. which is, obviously they're optional, but I'm not trying to, make you pick your faith against WWE, the NFL, or Sunday Night Baseball. But yeah, that makes also maybe you could have like a Sunday brunch with the family that might, end up, going off for that because you think about it. You think about it, I am confidently saying that most Americans probably don't really have a set weekend off. And I could be wrong, don't quote me on this, but I feel like mostly everybody works like they work on Saturday. I'm sorry, they really honestly do. And sometimes, like, if you have Saturday off or you work on Saturday, I did this. I'm going to use myself as an example. I worked on Saturdays. So every single time there was a pay per view on WWE on Saturday, I would tell my wife, I'd be like, all right, hey, don't watch a single shred of it. I turned off my my Twitter slash X, Instagram, and like, I didn't watch a single shred of anything. Got home, watched the wrestling thing, and it was like, it was new to me. It was new. Imagine if they go to Sundays, because Sundays I was like, all right, yeah, no, because most people they have their party days. They kind of have their kind of time to yourself. They kind of have those hidden hobbies or those passions that they kind of save for Saturday nights. And then Sunday, it's like, all right, now I got to spend time with the family, and it's not like a burden, not at all, because you want to spend time with your wife, you want to spend time with your kids, because you want to see your family and barbecues and stuff like that. Like, not all the time where you're gonna have barbecues where you're gonna see wrestling on the TV too. I'm sorry, like that's just science. But yeah, like it's gonna be hard to put WWE back on Sundays. I feel like they've done such a great job on Saturdays. Obviously, the WWE president Nick Khan has exemplified that and kind of portrayed that in an example that he said like it just works. Ticket sales are better, TV ratings are better. I don't know. I know. I know it might seem a little far fetched about the Sunday brunch and stuff. I know brunch is not a lot of people like going to brunch. I love brunch. Imagine going to a restaurant. You can have breakfast or lunch or even both. Sometimes you can have a breakfast burger with a mimosa if you're kind of into that kind of stuff. Not a lot, not a lot of people are into drinking during the day. But hey, y'all are missing out. No, I'm just kidding. No, definitely not the moral of this story today. So yeah, so we're kind of running out of time. Let's go and move right on. We have our WWE pay-per-views in Saudi Arabia. We're going to talk about just pay-per-views that has happened in the Middle East that in the history of WWE that's kind of shaped an opinion already. So hey, stay tuned.